It's taking a while.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Osquery Office Hours. Here it is, June 4th. Here in Boston, it's sunny, reasonably nice. I hope it's nice where other people are. First order of business is usually announcements or highlights since the last meeting. I think the one that maybe we have is that we released, it was probably 2 meetings ago, but we released 5.2, 5.1 out to stable. So yeah, yes, I should caveat that with I didn't update the website because the website update scripts are broken because of a bad PR that went in a little while ago. I should probably try and just manually fix that. Yeah, that's what I've got for announcements. Other announcements? Okay. Next section. Questions, issues, PRs people want to discuss. The intent here is to provide a clear time for community members to bring up anything, questions, bugs, blocked PRs, whatever they want. I will pause for a few moments, see if anyone has any questions. Okay, maybe no questions. I will take a moment and welcome Micah, who works with me here at 1Password Collide. So welcome, Micah.
Hello, everybody. Just joining in. I don't have anything on my agenda, but just here to listen in.
Welcome.
Yeah, so now we're down into agenda, and I don't know if anyone has any agenda items. I didn't. Anyone want to talk about anything?
I'm writing some endpoint security stuff again. And WWDC is in 10 days, maybe next week.
What are you doing with endpoint security?
Like a user-defined configuration where you can say, like, I want to subscribe to these events, which we don't already built for. So kind of like a very basic POC stuff. Not sure if it'll make it, but let's see how it works.
Are you doing it inside Osquery?
I am currently, but it might live outside if it doesn't make it. Yeah.
It seems pretty interesting. I'd love to see how that lands. One of the other things I know we've talked about in the past is that idea for BPF, right? Of like, what does it look like to give some configuration surface for like BPF events? And I don't know. I'd love to see where it goes. It seems good and interesting. I feel like there's a lot of. I feel like we don't have very good endpoint security stuff yet or BPF stuff, and I don't know how to get us working on that. And I feel like we suffer a little bit from the volunteer project and just no one's doing it.
Yeah, and I think like there are a couple of features that work really well that have been kind of sponsored in the past or like, and they continue working, but a lot of like the analysis is not in Osquery itself. It just generates events and passes it on. But yeah, there's a lot more we can do and do it better.
Yeah, like I think it'd be really interesting to think about what does better endpoint security support mean, and what does better BPF support mean, and is that stuff people are, excited to use and see, things like that.
We still have a bunch of stuff for BPF and the experimental features that we haven't fixed yet.
Can you remind me where we left that? Is that like hanging out in Trail of Bits land? Is that blocked on an Osquery thing?
I guess no one is sponsoring that work for the time being, and that was mostly something I did in my spare time. And what we have in there is a way more lightweight process events, both in terms of CPU usage and memory usage. And it works with the BTF support, but we have our own BCC alternative written from scratch with Clang and LLVM, which allows us to still generate BPF codes at runtime. So one of the things that I wanted to follow up on was adding support for creating tables on the fly from a BPF script, while still adhering to the guidelines that we have with within Osquery, meaning not having dependencies on the system.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it is kind of broken now. If you try that on the very latest kernels, there are some changes in the things we parse that we didn't add support for yet. But if you were to try that on, I think, Ubuntu, it should work up until Ubuntu 21.
It'd be great to see that work come back and figure out how to go forward with it. And I don't know if, we need to find a sponsor for Trail of Bits, or what we need to sort of push that forward a bit.
I mean, yeah, that would help, as it was mostly it is stuck due to a lack of spare time, mostly.
Mm-hmm.
But if there was sponsorship, I could devote my time on it, for sure, and extend it to support additional things like
Mm-hmm.
better container support, network events, and so on.
Ravel, I assume you're either similarly driven by hobbyists or have someone paying you.
Are you asking me? Sorry.
No.
Yeah, ideally sponsorship really helps, but sometimes it's also don't have time and yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just scratching my own curiosity or seeing like threat intel reports and seeing like how we could detect things better in Osquery. That is also a motivator, but
Yeah, IOCs is interesting. I feel like that. I don't know what I think of that space yet. Are there big things people feel like we should be thinking about that we're not thinking about?
In conversations that I've had, and this is again macOS specific, so sorry, but people really want deny listing support, which, I've kind of said like, oh, we don't do that. It's probably never in the cards, and then I know folks who then deploy Osquery and Santa or something else, but they kind of want like a simplified deny listing support of processes at least. I've heard that from multiple people working at multiple different sized corporations. And there's no easy way to do that in an extension also. I'm sure it's possible, but not easy.
You'd have to get the extension signed with an entitlement, right?
Yeah, and not just that, but what happens if, like an extension crashes because we waited too long to make a decision? Does that mean like Osquery crashes as well? And how's that data represented in a table? Like you took an action to block it, or did you take an action to allow it? So people want it, but it's also not an easy problem given how Osquery is written currently.
Yeah, a while ago, Trail of Bits shipped the update support for tables, but I don't remember how that works with extensions and kind of where those intersections are and stuff like that.
It was implemented so that it cannot be used in core. It will need to be unlocked. But yeah, it's strange. How would that? I mean, it is super interesting. But yeah, I was wondering how it would work. Would it like? Because the problem is that you have to reply, whether it should be allowed or not. Were they expecting to do so with an insert? So would they have something scouting the logs for requests?
So from the conversations I had, people wanted to like have a configuration inside Osquery, like these processes should never be kind of executed, like feeds they've collected or things that it matches on, like signing ID or even like the CD hash. But yeah, I don't know. It's just when I talk about Osquery and endpoint security, they come up to me and they're like, when can it do deny? And I'm like, probably never.
I see. I wonder if Sinter can be updated to be used as an extension. Sinter was that center
That would be
code that
nice. Yeah.
everything.
And Swift has gotten a lot further along as well. So you can also like have like Swift compile down to C++ now.
Yeah, I could imagine writing an extension to do this. I've heard people talk about trouble with Santa, but I haven't run anything. But I guess I also the time I tried to get these particular entitlements from Apple, it wasn't hard, so I assume anyone else can.
Yeah, we had some delay in pressing it, but it wasn't hard.
Yeah.
And I guess on the Linux side, I sometimes hear people talk about FIM, which you would have to do with BPF. I mean, ideally, you could use a kind of driver because it is way simpler, but people don't want it. So yeah, with BPF, there are several problems. It's not easy. But then again, I haven't really spent that much time researching it. Oh, actually, there's still something. Probably having better network events.
Sorry, better what?
Network events.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can also have support for always having local and remote IP imports. Right now, we are stuck with, like, unless you see a bind system call that gives you the information you need, you will sometimes miss the structure that you need to fill in some of the data. So that is not great.
Yeah, I feel like no, we do have a BPF socket event table, so at least there's that. But I feel like some tables that, like, if we actually looked at our evented tables, some of them use the old APIs around .ND or OpenBSM, and then some of them have support for the newer APIs, and it all feels a little chaotic.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, I would say that both those both the process and network events tables in BPF would benefit from rewrite, starting from the experimental features that we have. They were written originally when we were really stuck in terms with what we could use for compatibility reasons, and so it's not really ideal. There's not only we lack information in there, but it is also really slow because we had to correlate a lot of information that we see on the wire, let's say, when tracing system calls. So I feel like that is a big feature gap right now.
Yeah, I remember you talking about those performance things and all of the tracking when you were implementing it.
Yeah, we are basically doing what we were doing with audit. So piecing together file descriptors, maintaining a shadow copy of basically all the processes that we see moving around, so that we know what happens when a process forks and file descriptors are inherited. And it's rather heavy. But yeah, I mean, there was nothing else we could do at the time when we had to write it. But I heard about some people that tried the experimental features. They were really happy about it, especially for the performances. We could just fix that specific bug that we have on the latest kernel versions and just merge it as is. I mean, it is just merged, but maybe we can move it outside of the experimental branch of features that are feature locked behind flags.
I mean, I'd support that. I think. I don't think there's any downside, right?
Not that you ask for it, I think there was a downside, a compatibility issue with the old method that has to do with the toolchain. I think Stefano maybe remembers a little bit more than me. We had to update the toolchain, maybe.
There are the LLVM APIs. So the issue I recall is that for to update the toolchain, the current implementation we have in Osquery has to be updated because the LLVM APIs have changed. In some cases, it's pointer representation, if I recall correctly.
Do you happen to remember if we had a problem with enabling both BPF implementations at the same time? It's been so long, I don't remember. I would have to check.
Can we update it? Like, is there something stopping us? I mean, it can be work that stops us, right?
There's a bunch of code, a lot of code that depends on the old LLVM interface. We'll get back to you. We'll take a look at whether there is a problem or not, and and
One-
we'll give you.
One of the things I know that's come up before that we circle around a lot is it's like dropping support for CentOS 6 or for old Windows versions and things, and just kind of being limited in what we can do. And I may be fishing for whether this is another reason we should finally just drop CentOS 6.
I think that ship already sailed several months ago. So I think we already decided that CentOS 6 was not supported anymore.
I think you're right, but I want to reaffirm that.
Yeah, sure.
And Stefano saved me because my memory sucks. But Stefano is like an elephant that remembers everything. Okay, there should be no issue in moving that outside of the experimental. The problem was that I wanted an intrinsics that was not available in the LLVM version that we have right now, but that was for an extra feature that I wanted to experiment on. So thank you, Stefano. I will take advantage of the silence to ask a weird question. So you probably saw that we now have a Rust rewrite of Yara. And at some point, it will happen that we'll probably have a chance to introduce Rust code in the code base. So it mostly a reminder to consider this so that we will know how to approach this in the future when it happens.
I saw the announcement that there was a Rust rewrite of Yara, and I had an inkling that you might be curious about how that would fit with Osquery. I don't think I know enough to know. Right now, we interact with Yara through some C library, I assume, right? And
Yep.
I imagine that as long as there was some similar library, it would be fine. It would be weird to shell out to a Rust binary, but I don't know what the Rust C bridges like there, so I don't know.
So we can easily export the APIs in C form. I think the major hurdle is going to be how to make it play nice with all the rest of the glibc code that we have in there. Also, keeping in mind that we have to ship it. Like right now, we have a custom toolchain that we use to cross-compile from Linux to any other Linux. And we may not have this with Rust using just what we have right now. I also don't know if the compatibility metrics that we have right now with Osquery perfectly aligns with the Rust one. Now, of course, some things we dropped it, like CentOS 6. I don't know about CentOS 7. I think we dropped Windows 7. So, but I don't remember what kind of version we support for macOS, for example. So we'd have to check whether it affects us, not really for the language itself, because we can always export things in C form, but for with the way we redistribute things, we have to check whether that is a problem or not. But yeah, for the record, I would be happy to have Rust code in Osquery.
My gut sense is that from like some theoretical perspective, I can't imagine that we would say no, right? Like if Rust code is the way of the future for Yara, then our choices are very limited, and of course we would accept, you know, some kind of Rust code there. Beyond that, I don't know what I would say, right? It's sort of, you enumerate some of the problems, and I think we'd have to figure out answers to them. And I don't have those answers. Hopefully you will someday.
Yeah, I guess my stance is usually not to mix different languages. We have exceptions, like we have to use Objective-C sometimes. Of course, we have C code sometimes. But I would never, for example, introduce Swift code in this query, because the more languages you have, the harder it is to find a maintainer that can then move between all the different technologies. I would personally make an exception for Rust, as I mean, it does have its advantages.
My gut sense is it's like the core of Osquery is still very much C++, and then the actual table functions tend to be whatever they need to support the APIs. So I would imagine, at least initially, Yara looks very similar, right? It's not going to change any parts of the core, but what we need for the table might have to change. Although I'm probably simplifying it because the tool chain is just going to be a big mess. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any rush. The standard Yara version is to maintain, and it will be for a long time, I think. So it was just, you know, thinking about it in advance.
Other stuff?
Kind of related to your questions before, I was wondering, would it make sense to make a survey for Osquery? You know, ask about the feature gaps or the pain points.
I would totally support that.
I think, like many things, the answer is if someone wants to do it, it sounds great.
Yeah, we can maybe start a document and we can crowdsource it with the people in the channels.
I think one of the things that I don't know how to think about is that as a project, the bulk of our users are vendors or come in through vendors, and some of those vendors I don't think show up anywhere, right? You know, Collide is effectively a vendor, Fleet's a vendor, Cisco is a vendor, Vanta is a vendor, Jump Cloud is a vendor, right? All of these,
So many.
there's so many, right? Anyone who's like building an XDR is like shipping Osquery somewhere. That's what it feels like.
Microsoft is a vendor.
Microsoft's a vendor, right? And Apple is a heavy user, although they don't ship us, to my knowledge. But like, we don't have contact with any of these people, so like, I don't know. I don't know how to think about that. I don't know if you have any thoughts, Alessandro, or
A modal pop-up that opens when you start the query. What do you think? Yeah, that is true. We can maybe have it pop up in the release notes for a while.
That's true. People do read the release notes.
Yeah. Maybe even in Osquery, but I think that's a step too far.
I don't know that that's a step too far. That's an interesting question. What if it only showed up in like if it was a welcome banner for one specific OS query release?
That makes sense. There are precedents. I think it would be nice.
Okay, I wouldn't discount that.
You wouldn't mind that? Okay.
I don't know. It's an interesting it's an interesting thing. I don't know that it's wrong or anything.
Because I remember like back in the day there used to be like Made with Love at Facebook or something to that effect in Osquery. Like this is like Osquery 1.x something.
I mean, so if I start OS query d-s, what I get is a entirely useless message telling me it's using a virtual database and type help. I know what that means, but like it's a dumb message and no one cares. So clearly we have precedent for dumb messages that no one knows how to read. Like our startup isn't that clean here.
Okay. I mean that would be the easiest way to reach folks, like have like a Osquery survey banner in Osquery, but I'm glad it's not a step too far.
That's a really interesting question. I'm kind of down for trying it in a way. You know, you can imagine like we can do it in a reasonably privacy conscious way, right? We can return a survey link and we can have it not return a survey link if we're after a date, right?
Yeah. And just simple use Google Forms and it can be anonymous.
Yeah. I think one of the things about surveys is just what's the words I want to say? Doing a good job on survey design and data analysis is like a non-trivial task. So I think we'd have to think pretty hard before we tried to get ourselves that much. Uh, God knows what we'll see. If people don't have other stuff, we could, end a little bit earlier. Okay. Well, I think maybe then we end this one. Thank you all for coming, for your work, and your thoughts.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Pep.